Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, Deku T3000, written by Justice3138. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin Terminator plus My Hero Academia crossover. This is the pilot for an idea that just wouldn't leave me alone until it was shared with all of you. Tell what you like, don't like, and if you want to see more. Stay safe. Stay fun. Justice 3138. Here's the sad truth, all men are not created equal. I learned that at the young age of 4. I also learned that children are sociopaths and that I was not exempt from it. I was declared quirkless. That was the start of the first lesson. The start of the second came when my classmates found out. The nice ones felt sorry for me, the others wouldn't stop reminding me. There was no escape from the reminders that I was weaker than the rest, but what stung the most was my best friend becoming my worst bully. Katsuki Bakugou. We had such fun together before his quirk came in. After that his ego grew to legendary proportions. How do I know it was legendary? I'm talking about it. After such a betrayal I probably would have become a nervous wreck if it wasn't for that fateful day. Bakugou was trying to hurt another kid for something ridiculous. To this day I can't remember exactly what it was, the events after are more important. I was so scared, but I still managed to stammer out, "I'll stop you myself." Bakugou chuckled and monologued like the villains he wants to fight, but that's still not the important part. The important part is what happened after the first explosion-powered hit landed. To this day those events are hazy, so I had to get second-hand accounts to tell you this bit. Bakugou's explosion went off in my face. The surprise was that my face was blown off. And underneath was revealed to be a gunmetal skull. Not a typical one, mind you. This skull looked like something a sci-fi fan drew while tripping, spaces missing to make the overall structure lighter but still just as strong. Lips still intact but with the same gunmetal color that the not bone had. My eyes though were the scariest. Gray scara with a white iris and pupil. The eyes of a corpse, a mechanical corpse. I don't remember how it happened, but the next thing I could remember was Bakugou and his cronies crying and seeing the structure of my hands repair themselves. Like grains of metal sand blowing in the wind but moving towards the damaged areas in an organized mechanical manner. Covering them and then turning into normal skin. A teacher found us. Dragged everyone to the office. After the shock wore off, one thought was on repeat. I have a quirk. I was overjoyed. Then I looked at my 3 assailants. A new aspect of my quirk made itself known. I didn't just see the scuffs and bruises. I saw the veins, the muscle and the bones. The broken bones. I knew in some corner of my mind that I did this, and that joy I felt turned sour. Before I knew it, I was in front of Bakugou. Are you okay? I'm sorry I did this, I don't know how I did this. Bakugou just looked at me in shock while I rambled on. Then he did something that took me by surprise. He smiled. So Deku stands up for himself and gets a quirk from it. Had I known it would be that easy I would have blown your face off sooner. He said, still smiling. But don't think this means you're better than me, I'm still going to be the best, he shouted with his soon-to-be signature scowl. After that he surprised me again by lying to the adults and saying we were just wrestling when my quirk showed up. The teachers looked skeptical, but no one said anything different. Once the meeting was over, the 2 troublemakers and friend were taken to the hospital and me and Mom went to a quirk specialist. A different one. That trip was very informative. My quirk was a mutation type. Every single cell in my body was smaller than normal and composed of what the doctor dubbed machine phase matter. There was no known equivalent in the science community. While most people's cells are specialized, like bone cells versus skin or liver cells. Mine were all the same multipurpose cell. With prompting I was able to do some minor shape-shifting. When I turned my forearms into giant blades my mom nearly had a heart attack. I could change my face but only little things at that time, like shortening my hair or changing its color. When at rest my cells mimicked the appearance of normal ones. X-rays didn't show anything but regular bones, leading to the conclusion that all my other internals were still the same unless I decided otherwise. On a whim, the doctor asked if I could make my body flow like water or sand. I tried moving some of myself from one hand to the other, like tossing a ball. It worked, and I got another glimpse at what my hand looked underneath. While everything looked, as I would later come to learn, like it would in a medical poster, segments would go missing to generate the floating mass. These open segments, I would learn after much studying, were like the open spaces in an I-beam used for construction. When I mentioned my eyes, we had to do another slew of tests. Not that I was complaining, I wanted to see what I could do. Turns out I could see in every light spectrum and possibly a few other ways as well. After all the tests, the doctor concluded that the reason I still had an extra joint in my toe, we checked it was still there, was because my body was mimicking the original human body before quirks, and that I might one day be able to mimic other people down to the smallest detail. On the drive home, my mom started to cry. I asked her what was wrong, and she looked surprised. "Guess we have to add super hearing," she said. I wasn't deterred though, and asked again what was wrong. "Nothing is wrong, sweetie, I'm just so happy for you. Do you think I could be a hero, Mom?" I asked, repeating that question I asked while crying and watching All Might save people on the computer. She froze but relaxed and whispered, "Yes, I think you can become a hero." As the years went by, I practiced with my quirk and learned many things about it. Number 1, my limits were my imagination. The energy needed to shift my mass around was almost negligible. I never really seemed to get tired, like my body had some other energy source or just used the energy from food more efficiently. Neither I nor the doctors could figure that out. Number 2, exercise was almost pointless. Exercise didn't affect my muscles the way it did other people. They didn't tear and build back up stronger. My muscles would always have a mechanically hard limit, but I could shift the structure of said muscles to increase that mechanical limit, after lots of studying mechanical engineering. Super strength was added to the list of my abilities. Number 3, I will always win costume contests. I use my phase matter to form clothes and change them to anything I had seen before and make slight adjustments without the need of seeing an original. It was hard getting Mom to agree, but once I pointed out the savings on clothes, she relented. Number 4, I am banned from karaoke competitions. I could not only mimic people after just looking at them, but I could mimic their voice after hearing only a sentence. I laughed so hard when Mom came home to find her favorite soap opera character sitting on her couch and just stood there trying to form a sentence. After a slap upside the head and a promise to never buy liquor before it was legal, she congratulated me. Number 5, if it's got a hole in it, I can get through it. I can lower the strength of the magnetic field that holds me together to turn myself into a cloud of metal sand with weight. Or I could leave a bit of myself behind to push off of for a boost in speed. The effect was like a speed mirage. This increased my mobility in close quarters. Number 6, I can walk on metal walls. With my magnetic field I could magnetize myself to stick to anything with metal in it. Number 7, Kaken has the emotional range of a teaspoon and the emotional volatility of a teenage girl. I don't know how it happened, but our friendship seemed to mend itself a few years after I got my quirk. Maybe it was when we started sparring against each other. Maybe it was because I wouldn't let him get away with anything. Maybe it was because right now we were tied in our tally of spars. Maybe it was because whenever I got truly angry, I would go into what he called my killer robot mode, complete with machine corpse eyes. Haven't blacked out since that first time, so I chalked it up to just being because of my quirk coming in. Whenever I would call us friends, he would vehemently deny it, saying I was the only decent punching bag around. Eventually I got comfortable enough to tease him. Like when I found out that he deliberately makes a troll face because people have said one too many times he looks like his mom. That was a good day. Today started off with a bang. I got a front row seat to Empty Lady's debut and made several notes on her quirk. One of my hobbies was picking apart new quirks. Whenever Kaken sees me muttering and writing notes in my quirk notebook, he says I'm going to eventually take over the world's WMDs and start Armageddon. I don't know where he gets his material, but his jokes are lame. Though I do wonder why he shakes his head after I point it out. Classes were normal, other than the teacher saying we should start thinking about our futures and Kaken insulting the entire class, but even then, that's not something completely out of the ordinary. Hey Deku, don't forget about tomorrow's spar alright. Kaken drawled. I haven't forgotten a single one Kaken, so does that mean you talk to me after school because you need your dose of this wonderful specimen? I told you I can't return your feelings. I said, trying not to burst out laughing at my own joke. Like I would ever try and woo you. But hey, I forgot to ask, why do you keep using that wimpy look when you could buff yourself up with just a thought, he asked, showing his insight that most wouldn't think he had. In our last spar I had just perfected changing into other people in under a second. It was a big surprise to Kaken when he thought he was going to hit his mother. Unlike you Kaken, I don't have a compulsive need to show off. I told you, a micro PP is nothing to be ashamed of. I must have used that one too much if the lack of reaction was any indicator. The reason I don't turn myself into a slab of meat is to keep the vultures off of me. I responded. Truth is, there was a lot of reasons for keeping this Skinner form. It was good practice to see how small of a person I could mimic, and no one pays attention to a frail-looking kid, just to name a few. I haven't told my friend yet, but I did spend a day with a different face and a stronger build. The number of harlots trying to get my attention was too much. Most guys would jump at the chance to have girls hanging off their arms, but it was more exhausting than it was fun. So, I haven't done it again since. After we parted ways, I made my way home. When I walked underneath an overpass is when things got exciting. I heard some squelching noise behind me. When I turned around to look, there he was. The ugliest villain I had ever seen, and that's coming from someone who will go out of his way to see a fight between heroes and villains. I could have gotten out of the way, but I have never had the chance to test my quirk against living fluid before. If I still needed to breath then I would have been more cautious, but this was too good an opportunity to pass up. Once he got me, he tried to shove himself down my throat. The pervert. I quickly sealed off my throat with a shift of my phase matter, and every other orifice for good measure. Hey, why can't I take over your body? The sludge finally spoke. I though had had enough experimentation for one day. Every cement structure has metal rebar in it, and this walkway was no different. I magnetized my feet to it, dragging me down to the ground, and was about to keep walking when the hero the villain was muttering about showed up. Now I can see why he was running. If I had all might on my butt I would be running too, or asking for an autograph on my way to the slammer. It was a coin toss. Have no fear, you're safe, now that I am here, that is. All Might declared. If I was truly in danger, I probably would have been relieved to hear those words. As it was, my fanboy heart was aflutter. Well, it would be if it wasn't a solid mass of machine particles. After a few swipes from the villain, All Might yelled out Texas Smash, and while I couldn't feel it, I could tell from the vibration of the concrete under my feet that he just generated hurricane-level winds from one punch. It apparently was enough to splatter the villain, because I was now able to see in the normal light spectrum again. Good thing I was stuck to the ground, otherwise I would have went flying. Wow, I thought you would be out like a light with that villain smothering you. You're pretty tough. All Might shouted in his picture-perfect baritone. Sorry about that back there, I didn't mean to get you caught up in my justicing. Usually I pay more attention to keeping bystanders safe. But it turns out this city's sewer system is pretty difficult to navigate. He continued, followed by his signature laugh. Anyway. You were a big help. Thank you. I've captured the evildoer, he said with 2 soda bottles filled with villain. Either he was so fast I couldn't see it, or I was too distracted to catch him do it. I know it's corny, but I was eating it up. He is so much cooler in person. Could you please sign my notebook? I asked with absolutely no crack in my voice at all, and if someone says otherwise, they won't find the body. Certainly, he replied and walked up to me while I held out my notebook. That's when I saw it. Through clothes and skin, I saw the wound on his left side. Welp. I've gotta get this guy to the police so they can take care of him. Stay out of trouble, see you around. You're leaving already. I blurted out. Pro heroes are constantly fighting time as well as enemies. He replied while stretching. Something about that time comment bugged me. Now stand back, I'm taking off. Just as his legs were fully extended but before he left the ground, I made a split-second decision and grabbed onto him. He got out a, "Thanks for your continued support," before he realized I was on his leg. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Let go. I love my fans, but this is too much. Clearly this was a reflexive response. And what happens if I let go this high up? I asked. I would survive, but he didn't need to know that. Oh. That's a good point, just keep your eyes and mouth shut. Unneeded, but I appreciated the sentiment. That's when I heard him cough and whisper, "SHT, not a very smart move, bang on the door for a while, someone will let you in." Considering the hole in your side, are you really someone who should be talking about smart moves? I asked. He froze on his march to the ledge. My quirk affects my eyes. When you signed my notebook, I saw all the internal damage and I wanted to ask you. How do you do it? How do you continue to smile, to be the #1 hero despite how much pain you must be in? I asked. Before he could answer, he started to steam like a smoke bomb while groaning. The results were more surprising than the wound I was talking about. Gone was the titan covered in muscle, and in its place stood a bag of skin and bones. I have so many questions now. So, do I, kid? But to answer your immediate question, you know how guys at the pool are skiing their gut and flexing, I'm like that. He said, not that it actually explained how his muscles changed their mass like that. I would know, that's a hard limit of my quirk. I'm counting on you to keep your mouth shut. Don't go talking about this online or telling your friends. If I was going to do that, I wouldn't have told you or grabbed your leg. I shot back at the cripple. What? Kaken rubbed off on me. Fair enough, it happened 5 years ago when I got into a big fight. Do you how bad the damage is? He asked. I focused more on his side and started listing off what I could see. Your respiratory system is in shambles, your stomach is just gone, and judging by the internal scar tissue you have had multiple surgeries that have exacerbated the damage already there. What is left looks like it was stitched back together by Dr. Frankenstein. I don't think Toxic Chainsaw could have done this. I finished. Wow, you really know your stuff, and yes, that punk may have landed some hits, but he couldn't bring me down. Not that it matters, I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day now. Rest of the time, this is what I look like. I knew that All Might was less active in recent years, but I didn't think it was only 3 hours a day. I thought he was tough before, but this takes it to a whole new level. You asked me, how I do it. The answer is fear. I am afraid of what the world will look like after I hang up my cape. Crime rates dropped when the mere mention of my name brought hope to people and fear to criminals. The symbol of peace doesn't do the burden justice. I keep going because I am afraid, and I smile to hide that fear. He declared. Most people would have retired right after getting hurt so bad, but he has kept on outshining everyone else with 1 lung and no stomach for years. His title is well earned. If only it didn't come at such a high cost. This job is tough. Heroes are always having to risk their lives, so we don't like it when civilians make that job harder by jumping in thinking we will save them. He lectured. Not going to lie, that stung a bit more than I would like. He left after that. I was going to follow until I heard an explosion in the distance. I left to see what was happening, but I was going a little slower, digesting what All Might said on my way there. It was the sludge villain that tried to hurt me from before. He must have fell out of All Might's pockets when I grabbed onto him. The guilt twisted my gut. Why though were the heroes just standing there? Don't hero schools teach them how to adapt to situations that don't favor their quirk? That was my last rational thought before what I saw next. Kaken was in that villain's grip. Why am I running? I couldn't remember starting, but with my friend in danger it didn't matter. I could hear the supposed heroes yelling at me, but it didn't matter. I let my body decompress itself to what it was supposed to be, gaining almost a foot in height and about 20 pounds of visible muscle. My speed increased with the length of my legs. My backpack was behind the safety line, so I grabbed a piece of building the size of a baseball and threw it at the villain's eye. Threw isn't accurate. I launched it just a few ft per second shy of the slowest bullet. I used my speed boost to cover the rest of the distance. Without a second to think about it, I grabbed my friend by the back of his collar and threw him towards the heroes, because I wasn't going to be able to stop or dodge the villain's payback for the eye. He didn't show that he was capable of making stabbing implements before, but the lance of sludge going through my back and out my chest said differently. He must have been really sad, cause he started to ragdoll me into every hard surface he could find. Good thing I was made of metal, or else I would be a bag of pulp by now. He held me up in front of the frozen heroes like a trophy. It was then that I decided to stop playing possum. I, again, stuck myself to the metal rebar under the cement, twisted around to face the sludge villain, and cut the tendril stuck in my back off with a newly formed blade from my left arm. He and the heroes were so shocked nobody knew where all might came from. I really am pathetic. I told you to stay out of the way of the heroes. But I see now I wasn't living up to my own ideals. Pros are always risking their lives. That's the true test of a hero. He loves his speeches, not that I was complaining. Detroit smash. Was all the warning I got before even stronger winds than last time hit me like a sledgehammer. This time I couldn't stay put and got pushed down and back to where I threw Kaken. Once the wind died down, it started to rain. I was in awe at how much force it would have taken to change the weather. People started to cheer, but it was quickly stopped when someone shouted, "Is that kid who got stabbed alive?" The crowd started to murmur in panic. Me and Kaken stood up almost at the exact same time, giving everyone a perfect view of the hole in my chest. "Hey Kaken, can you see my heart?" I asked in fake concern. "Shut up tin can, you know you don't have one," was his reply. Our banter got the crowd out of their funk and the cheering recommenced, louder if possible. The villain was gathered up and taken into police custody where he belongs, and the heroes tried to chew me out. "Can it, windbag?" I snapped at Death Arms. "Unless the police have charges, they can lay against me that don't drag your useless names through the mud. You can shut up about how a student did the pro's job for them, while they waited for someone with the right quirk to show up." I took their stunned silence as my K to leave, shrinking down to my school size as I walked. Kaken though was in hysterics. He was laughing so hard from my speech. But I was in the residential area when today's last surprise decided to show up. "I am here," my favorite hero shouted while making a dramatic entrance. His over-the-top performance was getting old. "Oh, who am I kidding? It's never going to get old for me." "How did you get rid of those reporters?" I asked. "Ha. Ha. I stand for justice. Not sound bites. Because I admit I screamed a little." Once he was done hacking up his other lung, he spoke. "Young man, I came here to thank you." "Huh," was my intelligent reply. "If you hadn't run into that fight, I would have been a worthless bystander, watching from the crowd. So, thanks." "Oh, no. It was my fault he was there to begin with." I apologized. What I really felt bad about was wasting his limited hero time. There are stories about every hero. How they became great. He started. Most have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think. Almost on their own. He continued. And today, that's what happened to you. Hearing this from my idol was filling me with something I couldn't describe. If I could, I would be crying right now. "Young man, you can become a hero." That did it. I was on my knees, head face down, filled to the brim with emotion. "I deem you worthy of my power. My quirk is yours to inherit." Over-the-top bag of bones say what? After lots of explaining I accepted All Might's offer to inherit his quirk. I was already going to try and get into the hero business. So, unless there was some real mean villain that knew about the nature of his quirk and had a hate-on for it, I couldn't see any downside to it. Also, my inner fanboy would have started a riot if I turned it down, and I don't need split personality syndrome. But being out on this beach moving an old refrigerator with him on top of it made me question his sanity, or rather, his attention to detail. Wow. You're pretty strong already, he shouted, but that just sent the alarm bells in my head a-ringing. Why do you have me dragging garbage across the beach? I asked, fearing I already knew the answer. Ha. Ha, take a look at yourself, you're not ready for my power. He answered while taking photos. First time I ever felt bad about keeping this skinny form. My quirk, one for all, is a whole lot to handle. The combined physical abilities of everyone who's ever used it creates a hurricane of pure force. An unprepared body can't fully inherit it. Your arms and legs would shoot off if you tried to. He continued. So, this whole trash thing is a hardcore gym workout? I asked, getting more concerned. You got it, but there's another reason, too. I did a little online research yesterday. Turns out this part of the beach used to be appealing, but it's been a total mess for the last few years. He dented the refrigerator he was sitting on. Illegal dumping and ocean currents collected and moved it here. Heroes these days are all about showing off and capturing flashy villains. He started to crush the fridge. Things were different before quirks. Service is what mattered. Back then, heroes were those who helped the community. Even if it was kind of boring. Don't know how, but when he flattened the fridge, the garbage behind him took off like it was afraid of him. You will restore the coastline for this entire section of the beach. That is the first step on your path, young man. Towards being a hero. He declared. Normally I would be in an otaku coma by now, but necessity breeds sass. Did you come up with this before you looked up my quirk? I asked. Was my idol's response. I thought heroes had access to the quirk registry. I pressed. We do, but only if we are looking into someone for investigative purposes. Looking up random citizens' quirks is not only not allowed but raises red flags. He replied. Is your quirk not some regeneration power? He asked. No, my quirk, machine phase matter, is a mutation type that has a lot of applications. I explained. With that I changed into a perfect replica of All Might, including his current clothing. I have control of my entire body on the cellular level, and one of the drawbacks is that I can't build muscle from working out, but I can change my shape to increase my load capacity. I said in a perfect imitation of his voice. His surprised face was something that I would never forget. This entire exercise is pointless if the only goal was to make me ready for your quirk. I'm either ready for it or I am not. I finished, switching back to my skinny form. He went silent for a minute after that. He did eventually speak. I see. Well, we will need a specialist's go-ahead before I can give you my quirk. I just so happen to know one who also knows about One for All. He declared. Oh, who is this specialist? I asked. The pro-hero recovery girl. He replied. All Might, please tell me that you didn't just say that recovery girl is the only doctor who can determine if I can handle One for All. I begged. All Might was alarmed by my reaction, but if what he said is true then I don't feel bad about it all. Do you have some sort of history with her? He asked. Do I have a history with her? A few years ago, my regular physician had asked her to consult on some of my test results. That was the first mistake. Letting her call the house phone was the second. That woman became obsessed with my revolutionary physiology. Her passion was extremely unsettling. In fact, me and my mom both agreed to cut her out of the loop. That was the third mistake. The letters and callbacks were bordering on harassment. After the threat of a lawsuit was uttered, we agreed that she could send one letter a year and we would not press charges. Mom didn't want to give any ground, but I pointed out that she was the nurse of the school I wanted to get into, and it was easier to play nice. Also, despite how off-putting her mania was, she is one of the best doctors in the country and her status as a hero pulled on my heartstrings. Besides, it wasn't agreed upon that I was obligated to read her letters, just receive them. I told All Might this and he looked like a light bulb went off. You're the God's gift to science and medicine, she rambles on about when I have to go to her. He exclaimed. Probably, was my flat reply. Then I'm sorry, young man, but she is the only doctor alive who knows about One for All. If there was another with her skill set and knowledge, I would go to them. He apologized. With that he escorted me to my funeral in a nondescript car, probably to keep his identity and location a secret. I didn't pay attention to anything, not even my dream school could drag me away from my panicked thoughts of what kind of tests she would try to slip in. All Might knocking on her office door though, was like a bucket of ice water. Oh, Toshinori, what a surprise, you aren't due for another week. She said in her sweet grandma voice that could put people at ease, but I knew better. I didn't even register All Might's real name. Yes, well, I chose a successor. All Might began. Really? That's great, but why do you need me? Don't tell me they've already hurt themselves because of your stupidity. She shouted at the end. No, in fact I'm being cautious. I'm not sure my successor could handle my quirk, given his own quirk, and I wanted your medical approval before I gave it to him. Oh, then where is he? She asked. With that I stepped out from behind All Might. It was difficult hiding behind his skinny form, but fear was a great motivator. As soon as she saw me, we both stiffened. For what seemed like an eternity neither of us spoke. Brat. She said in a cold tone completely different from her granny persona and in my opinion her true voice. Which was my mature response. So, your fanboy nature finally bit you in the butt. She replied smugly. I was honestly considering turning down All Might's offer if it meant I could get away from her, but my respect, yes respect, not worship, of All Might stayed my feet. Yes, so go fire up your gingerbread oven, or do you have to go out on your broom to get more children? I shot back. Oh, don't be silly, you'll do. Was her chilling response before she turned around. I thought you were joking. All Might said. There are two things I don't joke about, hero merchandise and that green-skinned goat. I hissed. We followed her into her metaphorical gingerbread house. She sat on a chair next to a bed. You could sit on the bed if you want, but if you're more comfortable standing, I understand. She said, back in her granny voice. Just to prove her wrong I sat on the bed. What followed was the typical examination during a physical. It was pointless given that I don't have a heartbeat or BLD pressure unless I want to, and my lungs were just for speaking. I think she was just trying to put me at ease, but I wasn't going to let my guard down. Once she finished with the pointless tests she got to the uncomfortable stuff. Before our talks went south, I heard about a battle mode. It strips down your body to only things you need in a fight and increases your strength and speed, she asked. Yes. I responded curtly. If you could show me it would give me a better idea of what's actually going on. She said. My battle mode, as it was called, was something that I didn't have to think about to form. It was strangely instinctive, like my base form, skinny me takes conscious effort. I haven't found a way to improve it strangely enough. My curiosity about it was what allowed me to nod my head in acceptance. I grew taller and more muscular than even my base form. Skin and hair retracted to reveal a body structure not possible for anyone else. I looked like a robot's idea of what the human body should look like. I'm not normally self-conscious about how I look now, but given who my audience is I felt strangely naked. Ironic considering that when I'm like this I don't have reproductive organs to be embarrassed about. All Might's slack jaw did give me a little ego boost though. The feeling of a thin piece of metal in between my sci-fi ribs interrupted my preening. "What are you doing?" I asked pointedly. "Checking if you're hollow or if your organs are still there," she replied. "Well, next time you decide to probe me, buy me dinner and then ask." I shot back. "But then I wouldn't know if you could feel the probe," she returned. "I can guarantee you that I can feel everywhere that probe is touching and that it feels weird," I stressed. "Oh God! Is it vibrating?" I shrieked. "That's the LTRSND, not many people can detect such high frequencies," she explained. Not that it helped. "All right, Sonny, I think I have everything I need," she said while taking the metal rod with a cord attached to a computer out of my side. I shifted back to my base form, and after a few seconds of waiting, All Might sat next to me. "Is this how you normally look?" he asked. "Yes, I use the skinny version to train my shape-shifting and to keep the shallow females at my school away," I replied. He nodded in understanding. Probably thinking about the All Might bunnies that have popped up on occasion. "Yes, that's what they call themselves." "Alright, so here are the results. I used that modified LTRSND to get an image of your internals. Aside from really small lungs, your chest cavity and abdomen are a honeycombed flexible mass. Your cells are still shaped like cells but smaller and denser," she explained. "From the tests I did on All Might, one for all stores itself in the cells of its holder. Given that your cells are superior to a normal human's, I am confident that you could inherit the quirk without it damaging you. At least until you use it for the first time," she tacked on. "Wait, you couldn't have found that out from the probe? Was it even necessary?" I asked. "I was confident that you could inherit one for all before you walked through the door. That probe was just to confirm that you didn't have any weak points in your body structure that the quirk might strain," she replied smugly. DMN, she dodged the bucket of water again. I muttered just loud enough for her to hear. "I had a speech about hard work and how you earn my power, but it looks like I'll have to use something else when you finish cleaning up the beach. We can still use it as training with One for All." All Might interjected. It was then that he buffed up and pulled one of his hairs out. "Without further ado, eat this," he declared. I took one look at the greasy hair and wondered if the witch had any more probes she wanted to use. Dagobah Beach. After eating a disgusting, product-covered hair and a ride back to the beach, we had about a minute before I digested the hair and gained One for All. When I take on a human form, I create a stomach organ that somehow draws energy from food without acid. So, when you get my power, you're going to try and use it on the ocean in front of us. We were standing in a small cleared spot on the shoreline. When you go to use it, clench your butt cheeks and yell from the depths of your heart, "Smash!" he shouted, turning into his buff form at the end. "What if I don't have butt cheeks?" I asked puckishly. "Then make some and clench. Until you've had some practice, that's the only advice I can give you on how to activate my power. Each user of One for All is different, so you're going to have to figure out how to limit how much you use on your own." "Great. Well, you should have digested the hair by now. How you feel?" he asked. "I don't feel any different. Guess my body can contain One for All," I said. "Great. Well then, take her for a spin," All Might encouraged. I squared off my stance and clenched my butt cheeks. "Yes, I do have them, rather nice ones I might add," and I yelled with all my heart, "Smash!" For what felt like an eternity but only lasted a few seconds, the ocean was split in two as far as the horizon. When the waters came together, I noticed the lack of weight on my right side. Turns out, using One for All at full throttle overpowered my magnetic field and turned my arm, up to my elbow, into dust, and the outer layer up to my shoulder was gone, revealing the techno muscle underneath. This self-destruction only happened after the punch landed, so to speak. I would have panicked, but the dust that was my arm was putting itself back together. "Midoriya!" All Might yelled. "It's alright. It's fixing itself already," I assured while showing him my slowly regrowing stump. It was going to take 5 minutes to completely repair itself, guessed the phase matter was dispersed pretty far. In a fight, 5 minutes was an eternity. Unless I could overcharge my magnetic field with one for all or find some other solution, I was going to have a problem. These next 10 months were going to be a pain in the butt. My prediction was correct. One for all was the Quirk equivalent of an angry bull. After months of practice I was only able to use about 2% across my whole body without disrupting its integrity. My magnetic field was able to use one for all to increase its charge, but for some reason getting it to do more than slightly increase it was proving difficult. With the practice taking time away I was only able to finish cleaning the beach close to the end of our 10 months of training. Also, my friend Bakugou noticed that I had less free time to spar with him. Thankfully he bought the excuse that I was working on a new application of my quirk and wanted to keep it a secret for when we eventually competed against each other in UA. So, to summarize, one for all wanted to use too much power to attack and too little to charge my magnetic field. Kaken was almost too perceptive for my own good. UA's entrance exam was just around the corner and the beach was spotless. So, I am laying in syringe-free sand the day before the exams trying to both figure out why one for all was being difficult and forget about everything and relax so I could enjoy the moment and rest before the exams. It was at this point All Might showed up. Hey, shouldn't you be at home resting or doing something fun at least? All Might asked while changing into his hero form. Just thinking about the last 10 months and enjoying the hard work put into this place, or at least trying to. I said somewhat bitterly. Your progress with a new quirk has been more than acceptable, young Midoriya. Perhaps you've gotten used to excelling in everything and that's why you're frustrated with your actually quick progress. All Might queried. I thought about it and couldn't say he was entirely wrong. I was a late bloomer, but when my quirk came in, I blew past everyone. Only Kaken was able to keep up with me. Could it be because I had someone right next to me who picked up skills just as quick for the same goal that my self-expectations became unrealistic? So, in actuality my progress is closer to yours than I was thinking. I asked my predecessor. No, I was able to use one for all at its maximum right away, but I was the only one of us who picked it up almost instinctively. He replied. Well, that was the worst pep talk ever. If I act like the fanboy that I am, do you think I will get better service? Eventually I and All Might had to go home, and sleep eluded me like peace did at the beach. Yes, I do sleep, your phone has to be turned off occasionally, to keep glitches from happening, stop laughing or I'll get Siri to terrorize you. Day of the exam. Now that I don't have to go to the witch's office, I can appreciate the grandeur of UA. The building was both impressive without being excessive. Lots of elite schools around the world had famous architects design a stunning building at the cost of inflating their maintenance costs. Concaved windows and cleaning atypically shaped rooms adds up. UA was blocky but vaguely shaped like the H in Hero. It sent a message of practicality and an independence from having to market their own school. If you stand there all day, you'll miss the exams and I won't have my favorite punching bag on hand. Kaken jabbed, shaking me out of my thoughts as he passed by. Then the unthinkable happened, I tripped. I was going to catch myself, but someone did it for me. Are you okay? A female voice to my left asked. She had brown hair and a seemingly permanent smile on her face. She repositioned my weightless body back in a standing position. I stopped you with my quirk, I'm sorry I didn't ask first. But I figured you wouldn't mind me catching you. She continued. Isn't this all, like, way nerve-wracking? She asked. Her smile cracking to show anxiety. Yes, and people pulling pranks doesn't help. I added. Was her reply. I knelt down to the stone that tripped me. To anyone else it looked normal and completely level with the rest of the walkway. I, however, could see the mechanism to raise it when someone steps on another stone so that it could be hidden. I formed points on my fingers shaped like cool crowbars and shoved them into the space around the stone. My brown-haired savior was alarmed by my vandalism. Until I pulled out the stone along with a mess of wires and other bits of machine. If someone wanted to be in but, then I would happily spite them. I turned around but she had already left after my destruction of the sidewalk. Too bad I didn't get her name. Exam hall. I am not going to survive the first year. Is every teacher at UA a pro hero? It was a perfect decision to have Present Mike do the announcements, though. I think the rest of the faculty would be hard of hearing after someone tries to tell him he can't be a public speaker. The written portion was easy for someone who can interface with any piece of technology he touches and hide his phone inside his thigh. First time I tried that I found out that turning off the vibrate was very important. Mick's explanation of the practical portion was straightforward, but the 0-pointer was bugging me. Oh well, nothing I can do about it. What I could do something about was the guy with a grade A stick up his butt. Honestly, Mike was trying to get people to shout and I'm the problem. My scathing retort explaining as much, was enough to shut him up and get chuckles from Kaken. I think he plans to convert me to his crass ways, but I will remain strong. Battle Center. Poor cement toss. They must work him to the bone to set up all these mock buildings. Right, let's start. Present Mike shouted, and with that, I was too focused on finding villains to hear the rest. Spotting them was easy when you can see through walls. Dismantling them in a timely manner when you can see the power source and have sparred for years with Kaken the Barbarian, is child's play. I stayed in base form and used my 2% of 1 for all to go through the robots like a meat grinder. Kaken would probably make some wise crack about how I was murdering my own people. Well, he would if I didn't make it very clear how much I didn't appreciate it the first time. That was also the day he first used the term killer robot mode. He's so silly sometimes. A big boom knocked me off balance after I destroyed a 3-pointer by caving in its power supply. My total was up to 76, but that was the least of my worries. The 0-pointer was significantly bigger than we were led to believe. I was going to follow the remaining faux villains until my sensitive hearing picked up the sound of a girl in distress. My eyes found her through the dust kicked up by the broken buildings. It was the girl from the front entrance. Her leg was caught under some rubble, minor fracture. Even if she does get the concrete off, she's a sitting duck and the 0-pointer will crush her. 50% will get me up to the 0-pointer's face, the location of the CPU. 50% also, won't completely destroy my legs, I hope. No time to think about it. I jumped. Within second I'm right in front of the 0-pointer's array of cameras. Just as I'm about to collide with its metal face I let my right fist fly and my fist is no more. But a decent amount of my arm is still there minus the outer layer, about 2 minutes for a full recovery. If I was made of flesh and bone, I would have had to use full power to achieve a similar result. But with a metal arm and half power, the 0-pointer was toppled and the chassis for its head was compromised enough that when it collided with the ground it crumpled like a house of cards. Now I'm falling. My legs had more time to repair themselves than my arm, but they still couldn't support my weight. While I was thinking of a way to land without causing any more damage to myself, someone else was already implementing their own. I could have done without the beach slap, but beggars can't be choosers. Her quirk must do more than just negate gravity. If it was just gravity negation, then I would have hit a building with the same force I would have hit the ground after she changed my direction with her slap. G-force still exists in zero gravity and air friction against a weightless mass wouldn't have slowed me down like that. She must have used the last of her strength to save me cause the piece of robot she was floating on and myself, fell and she started throwing up rainbows. How many Pop-Tarts did she eat for breakfast? My legs weren't ready to support my weight so when I suddenly landed on them, they broke like what I assume a normal person's would if they fractured their bones. Trying to catch my fall with my right arm had similar results. I've gotten into the habit of forming clothes first before fixing the internal damage to put people at ease while I self-repair. Kaken had mentioned how cool it looked and I knew it would be off-putting to most people. While I was slowly putting myself back together, I heard her voice again. My, you sure made a mess of yourself. Recovery girl said. Nothing I can't fix. Just give me a few minutes and I will be back on my feet. I replied. You know, this would be the perfect time to see if my quirk can help you. Recovery girl offered. She is sneaky. Playing off of my own curiosity to perform one of her own little experiments. Didn't change the fact that I nodded my permission. Now if only she didn't say, give me some sugar, before she used her extending lips to kiss my shoulder. The sensory input I got from her quirk was interesting. My magnetic field didn't change its power output, but my phase matter repaired itself faster than I thought possible. Could there be actual cell damage when I get hit? Then the fatigue hit me. What a novel experience. I haven't felt a change in my energy levels since before I got my quirk. As soon as it came it disappeared, must have been the sudden increase of energy usage rather than a depletion of my reserves that cause it. Like turning a stove on when you're using a small generator cause the power is out, but then that would mean that I'm more like a power plant than a rechargeable battery. Questions for another day. I thanked Recovery Girl and told her what happened before I left. The questions that resumed running through my head made me giddy. Could I overclock my body without Recovery Girl to do it? What kind of backlash would happen if I sustained it for too long? And how long would be too long? This tirade was interrupted by a single stray thought. Again, I forgot to ask the nice girl what her name was. The results of the entrance exam could not be more amusing. The addition of rescue points was the piece of the zero-pointer puzzle that I was missing. Now if only Kaken would stop chomping at the bit. He was 1 point ahead of me in villain points. However, he was busy getting those last points while his testing area's zero-pointer was rampaging. My rate of villain kills was higher than his until I decided to save the nice girl. If we tack on my 60 rescue points, I came in first in the entrance exam, but who had more villain points was a gray area for Kaken, and gray areas are a loss in his demented brain. If he weren't the only honest friend I had, then I don't know if our quirky friendship would have lasted. Most people exaggerate when they say all the kids at school are shallow assholes. I however performed a social experiment. I shape-shifted into a moderately good-looking guy for my class's age group, told them I had a weak face-changing quirk and behaved like my normal self. While quirks have become a new measure in social standing, the tried and true perfect body can make up for that. So, given that I wasn't going to see any of my classmates after middle school and my new perspective of children, I didn't hang out with anyone. I was by no means socially awkward, they just weren't worth my time. Figuring out my quirk and recently, All Mights was a much more productive use of my time. I'm starting to sound like my only friend, but he had the same kind of mindset as me, though he would interact with the hanger-ons if it meant less hassle. But things are different now, it's a new day and a new school and I can't keep isolating myself. I was doing away with the skinny disguise. Given the rigors of the entrance exam, it was doubtful that any gold diggers would be in our class. Turns out me and Kaken are in the same class. You packed everything right. Not just action figures, my mom teased as I was trying to get out the door for my first day at UA. Yes, Mom, and you know I haven't brought any of those to school since elementary. I replied. With your obsession, I was just making sure none of them fell in. It would be quite embarrassing if a girl found one in your bag. My mother continued. She had gained a bit of weight when we thought I wasn't going to get a quirk, but with that stressor gone she bounced right back. Now she lives to try and get me to socialize more. Not the I want grandkids obsession, but I think that will rear its ugly head after high school. Izuku. What? I groaned out in typical teenage fashion. I'm really proud of you, son. She softly spoke. Don't matter how old or tough you think you are, if you have any love for your mother then she can curse you with the warm and fuzzies with just a sentence. Provided you aren't Kaken and his mom. I'll see you soon. I answered. UA hi, I want to know who it was that was so tall without actively using their quirk that UA was required to put in such tall doors. I would be too thin if I tried to stretch myself that far. Oh well, time to see who I will be spending a lot of time around for the next 3 years. Take your feet off of that desk now. Son of a beach. Lawful good characters always think the chaotic good are evil. Ignoring the spat between those two, I took a glance at everyone else. There was such a variety of people in here that it made my middle school look like a military school with its uniformity. I almost didn't notice Tenya Ida. I caught his name while scoping out the crowd. He was walking up to me and doing an incredibly good impression of a robot. If I didn't know that he hasn't seen what's under my skin, I would be wondering if he was trying to push my buttons. "Hello Ida, I'm Izuku Midoriya," I said before he could try to introduce himself again. "Midoriya, you realized that there was something more to the practical exam, didn't you? You must be very perceptive, and I completely misjudged you. I admit, as a student you are far superior to me." Wow, he's serious. Hey. I recognize that messed up hair. "Falling boy," a familiar female voice exclaimed behind me. In my holographic acceptance letter, they showed her trying to give some of her points to me after the exam. Never thought someone other than Mom could curse me with the warm and fuzzies. While I was trying to think of something to say to the motor mouth, a yellow caterpillar decided to lay himself out in the middle of the hallway. "If you're just here to make friends, then you can pack up your stuff now," the caterpillar spoke. It was then that Ida and the girl whose name I don't know yet spotted him. For some reason they were acting like he was a ghost or a monster. "It's just a guy in a sleeping bag. Welcome to UA's hero course," he continued while skiing on some juice packet. "It took 8 seconds before you all shut up. That's not going to work. Time is precious. Rational students would understand that." My brain was currently cycling through its vast hero catalog to find this guy. He must be an underground hero if it was taking me this long. The hobo costume didn't help though. "Hello, I'm Shota Aizawa. Your teacher." "Right, let's get to it. Put these on and head outside," he delivered, declaring himself the king of deadpan. My only guess is that we were going to the sport field outside for some sort of quirk assessment, given his lack of concern for a traditional teacher persona and his comment on rationality. I was ahead of everybody, so while everyone else went to the locker room I walked straight to the field, shifting my uniform into the gym clothes he presented. My quirk is such a cheat code. Our teacher quirked an eyebrow when I showed up way before everyone else. That's interesting. If he had read my file, which should have my quirk given, "I'm in the hero course," then he should know that I can change my appearance and clothes on a whim. If he didn't read mine, then perhaps he didn't read anyone else's. Why would he not take the time to read our profiles, unless he thinks it's a waste of time? But that would mean that he doesn't expect everyone to make it through the first day. What is he planning? The nice girl was pointing out that we were going to miss orientation. I don't think he cares about any kind of decorum until it becomes a necessary evil. If you really want to make the big leagues, you can't waste time on pointless ceremonies. Aizawa spoke. Most of the class gasped at that. Did they think that the best hero school in the country was going to follow the norm? Granted, a villain must have knocked a few of this guy's screws loose, but still. Here at UA, we're not tethered to traditions. That means that I get to run my class however I see fit. More gasps. You've been taking standardized tests most of your lives. But you never got to use your quirks in physical exams before. The country's still trying to pretend that we are all created equal by not letting those with the most power excel. It's not rational. One day the Ministry of Education will learn. I honestly don't agree with that. A government is built upon equal and or fair treatment of everyone, at least on paper. While letting people excel is fine, there always will be consideration for the underachievers. Currently that would be the quirkless. While rare, they still do exist. Excluding them or those whose quirks are weaker will lead to a divided society and send us back to the time when quirks were first discovered. Public schools can't function if not standardized, and the bar must be set for the lowest to be able to pass. That's why private schools exist. It's why UA exists. The private sector has always had a higher standard and given out scholarships for those that can't afford tuition. UA has abandoned the fee altogether in favor of a merit system and whatever funding the board and principal have come up with. My big brain still hasn't cracked that one. But in short, Aizawa should get off his high horse. Bakugou, you managed to get the most villain points on the entrance exam. What was your farthest distance throw with a softball when you were in junior high? He asked, breaking me out of my thoughts. 67 meters, I think. My friend replied. I could see the small frown he had at being reminded that he didn't get the top score overall. Right. Try doing it with your quirk. Shota commanded. It seemed that Kaken wasn't moving fast enough. Anything goes, just stay in the circle. Go on. You're wasting our time. Alright man, you asked for it. Kaken replied. I was surprised he wasn't more vocal. Given the extra heat he added to his throw, I retract my previous thought. 705 meters was impressive. Some of the class were showing their excitement at being able to use their quirks as much as they want. This wasn't going to end well. So, this looks fun, huh? You have 3 years here to become a hero. You think it's all gonna be games and play time? Idiots. Today you'll compete in 8 physical tests to gauge your potential. Whoever comes in last has none and will be expelled immediately. That got my attention and everyone else's. Like I said, I get to decide how this class runs. Understand, he stressed. To add to the intimidation, he held his hair out of his eyes and gave a creepy grin. He would do well as a drill sergeant. If that's a problem, you can head home right now. He finished. The nice girl was the one to voice what some of us were thinking. She has the heart of a good hero, but I begrudgingly have to agree with our teacher on most of his points. Oh, and you think natural disasters are? Or power-hungry villains? Or catastrophic accidents that wipe out whole cities? No, the world is full of unfairness. It's a hero's job to try to combat that unfairness. If you want to be a pro, you're gonna have to push yourself to the brink. For the next 3 years, UA would throw one terrible hardship after another at you. I hate that I agree with him. So, go beyond. Plus, ultra style. Show me that it's no mistake that you're here. Honestly, he's like an All Might fan who got blown off and now acts all emo about it but still uses his lines in a twisted fashion. I don't know how to feel about that. Now then, we're just wasting time by talking. Let the games begin. He finished. Up first was the 50-meter dash. With the threat of expulsion, everyone was getting creative. A guy with a laser coming out of his belly button turned around and used it to propel himself faster than his legs could have carried him. Now if he weren't such a tool I would be impressed. 50-meter dash fate was smiling on Kaken today. We were paired up for the first event. Ready to lose Deku, he challenged. Not really, but that won't stop you from trying. Tell me how the view from behind me looks. I retorted. On your mark. Get ready. Go. And with that we took off like bullets. I was using one for all at 2%. If I didn't weigh 400 pounds of metal, 2% would have me moving at blinding speeds. As it was, I was only able to keep ahead of Kaken by a small margin. 4 seconds versus his 4.13. DMN, was his choice of expletive. How did you get this much faster, Deku? He shouted. Later, Kaken, we have other priorities. I dodged. TCH, fine. He conceded. Grip strength test. The grip strength test was more of my wheelhouse. I managed to beat the 6-armed guy by about 60 kilograms at 600. I am a living machine after all. Kaken didn't even try to compete. He knows from all the SBMSN holds I've used in our spars that once I get a hold of someone, the only way they are getting away is if they cut off the limb I have in my grasp. Which is why I could never take any of those old movies about machines taking over the world seriously. The infiltrator units had limbs of steel and would throw their target around. Once you have a grip on your target, you either break said limb or snap their neck. Okay, now I can see what Kaken is talking about when he says I turn into a killer robot. Standing long jump, he did beat me at the standing long jump. I was still above others who couldn't enhance their jump with their quirk, but curse you my fat butt. I must have said that last bit out loud cause Kaken is laughing. People asked him what was so funny, but he just blew them off. Good, I'm a little embarrassed about my weight now. Repeated side steps were another one that I took to like a fish to water. I was moving so fast that my classmates thought I was leaving after images. Too bad they were a little more solid than they thought. The short kid with the grapes on his head beat me though. Softball throw, there was no way I was going to get the top score for the softball throw after the nice girl sent hers into orbit. But I was still going to try. Maybe 50% again. It wouldn't take more than a couple of minutes to recover, and I don't need my arm for the long distance run or the sit-ups. By then I would have it back for the seated toe touch. Decision made, I started to wind up with 1 for all at half power. But then 1 for all left me. What the hell? Phase matter was working perfectly, but 1 for all is gone. The power is still there, but I can't reach it. That was the final piece of my teacher's hero name puzzle. So, you're Eraserhead, I said while lowering my arm, ball still in hand. The judges were not rational enough. Someone like you should never be allowed to enroll at this school. He said. Perhaps he didn't hear me. Either way, I was said. You're not ready, you have no self-preservation, and you don't have full control of your power. Were you planning on breaking your bones again? Counting on someone else to save your useless body? He asked. Apparently, he wanted an answer if the half-second silence was any indicator. Sorry, I thought you were being funny. I mouthed off. His scarf was pretty damn fast, and the fact that he could move me was even more impressive, so much so that I let him drag me towards him. Doesn't matter what you think, fact is you would be nothing more than a liability in battle. You have the same reckless passion as another overzealous hero I know. One who saved 1,000 people by himself and became a legend. But even with that drive you're worthless if you can only throw a single punch before breaking down. Sorry, Midoriya. With your power there's no way you can become a hero. I couldn't help it. I started laughing. No, I was in hysterics. This guy was the funniest thing I have ever seen since Mitsuki Bakugou learned to tease. My sudden fit stopped his monologue. This was going to be good. I knew from your quirked eyebrow when I first came out onto the field that you didn't read any of our quirk profiles. That got both eyebrows up. If you had, then you wouldn't have been surprised at my speed in getting out here. You think that my quirk is a strength enhancer that's all over the place, don't you? News flash. That's just one application of my quirk that I have been theorizing for about 10 months before the exam started. Now his face was shocked. I wasn't able to test it out until the 0-pointer showed up and the Infinity Girl was trapped under rubble. I didn't know it was going to break my limbs the way it did. That was the only time I have used that special move, and I haven't had a chance to try it again. He switched to suspicious. How about we up the ante? I know that you are considering expelling me whether I am dead last or not. What I did in the exam I estimate was only half of how far I can take that move. I'll use it full power so that we both know what we are dealing with, and then I will subdue you, and if you struggle, I will take you to Recovery Girl afterwards. Despite how injured I will be. The creepy grin is back. I enjoy taking arrogant brats like you down a peg. We can do that, but you set up the ante, so what do you want if you win and what will happen if you lose? He asked. Well, Pot. This kettle asks that if he wins you hold off on expelling anyone until you have a more substantial reason, and if I lose, not only will I drop out of the hero course but I will refrain from applying to any other hero course in the country. How does that sound, sensei? I asked with the flourish of a supervillain. Sure, that works. He released his scarf and his eyes stopped glowing. You've wasted enough time, get it over with. He said, back to his slothful persona. This was going to be fun. Ochiko Uraraka POV, this can't be happening. That green-haired boy must be insane. Subduing a pro-hero. The blonde-haired bomber was laughing like the green-haired one. Maybe he knows something. Excuse me, Bakugou. Do you know what's going on? I asked him. He stopped laughing, though it took some effort. Still grinning like a madman, he answered. We are going to have a front row seat to a first-year student beating down on a teacher. He said. Deku has some hidden power that Mr. Aizawa doesn't know about. I asked. His name's Izuku. I've been calling him Deku since we were 4 and he has more tricks up his sleeve than even I know. He always keeps his hand close and doesn't show everyone his cards. Wow, what I do know is that Teach's quirk is useless against Deku and it will only be a matter of time before he gets a hold of him, and from personal experience. Once he grabs you, it's over. That was high praise coming from this loud and rude person. I wonder how they became friends. Izuku threw the ball, and what a throw it was. At least the same as his friends. I only got a small glimpse, but was his arm gone? Then Mr. Aizawa pounced like a big jungle cat. Izuku was wrapped up in our teacher's scarf and his quirk erased. It must be a capture weapon, that scarf. Before Mr. Aizawa could speak, Izuku made his move. He dissolved into a gray cloud of sand. Weird sand. He moved up the scarf, and were those blades in the cloud of Izuku. Mr. Aizawa wasn't expecting that if the shock on his face was genuine. The blades were shredding the scarf. Mr. Aizawa was smart though and abandoned his capture weapon and backed away. Izuku reformed from the sand like in some sci-fi action movie. This must be the true power of his quirk. He crossed the remaining distance in a flash, and teacher and student engaged in CQC. Or, more accurately, one of them tried. Izuku POV. I have to give credit where credit is due. Eraserhead doesn't give up easily. If I didn't destroy his capture weapon, his combat effectiveness would be a lot higher. Right now, though, he has been reduced to the damage he can inflict with his arms and legs. And if it weren't for my immunity to blunt force trauma, I would be in for a world of hurt. His style is brutal and effective. Right now, I was letting him ragdoll me. The white-hot sensation in my left arm told me a simulated bone was broken. Then my right leg and jaw snapped. In under a minute I was left a broken heap on the ground. Pride goes before the fall. Aizawa declared. Funny, I was going to say the exact same thing. I replied. My voice distorted by my healing jaw. With that, I used my magnetic field to lift myself up like a marionette by its strings. The effect was a movement that was completely unnatural, topped off with a mechanized groan. Shock was the general response. I've often wondered, is the pain I feel real or just a trick of memory from when I was less? I continued, snapping my left arm out to realign the simulated bone to both speed up recovery and create a metallic snapping noise to further intimidate Aizawa. My right arm was still missing a hand, but the forearm understructure was back. My leg and jaw were finished realigning. I could SWCH to battle mode to use the outer shell to make a new hand, but that would be overkill and something I wanted to save for later. Doesn't matter, because now it's my turn, and I don't feel pity or remorse for what I am going to do. I stated. Now the real fight has begun. Before I just let Eraserhead beat down on me. To get a feel for his style. Now that I had that information, the fight was in my favor. I still couldn't use one for all reliably with his quirk in the mix, and I didn't want to do permanent damage. My strikes with my left fist still hit like a truck when I'm holding back though. And they were fast. Faster than Aizawa. If it weren't for his years of experience and battle-honed instinct, I would have hit him early into our fight. He couldn't land a hit either. Using my phase boost I could slip out of the way of his punches and kicks like water. It was a battle of attrition. Something that I could outlast even Kakin at. My muscles don't fatigue, my energy doesn't waver. I am a living weapon with a single goal and more time to achieve it. A single misstep was all I needed, and it inevitably came. He was a moment too slow to get out of the way and my punch grazed his shoulder, knocking him off balance. He would only need a similar moment to recover, but he wasn't going to get it. Completely dispersing and reforming my body in front of him with my fist ped back saved me those precious microseconds I needed to take advantage of his momentary unbalance and ram my fist in his gut. He was sent flying. Not extremely far, but the force needed to lift a full-grown man off his feet in the span of a few seconds would leave minor internal bruising. Had I used velocity rather than power, the damage would have been much more severe. Before he could get off his back, I planted my foot on top of his chest. "So, do you still think I would be a liability in battle?" I asked, and to further drive home the point, literally, I shifted my now mostly healed right arm into a blade and pointed it at his throat. Laughter was not what I expected from someone being held at sword point, but that's what I got. All right, I give, uncle." He spoke. I took my foot off Aizawa and offered him my right hand to help him up. I'm nothing if not sportsmanlike. When he got back on his feet, he held my hand a little longer, examining the still exposed phase matter of my hand. Not that I could blame him, it's been 11 years and I still find myself mesmerized by the structure of my limbs. "Go, we still have to get through the rest of the tests," he drawled, letting go of my hand. I wasn't fooled. I leaned in and whispered, "I'm impressed that you can keep a straight face with that internal bruising. FYI, I can also see through walls and people." With that I walked back to the rest of the class. The rest of the events weren't as exciting. If you discount a girl in the body of a model pulling out a scooter to use in the distance run, of which I beat Kaken in and was told to stop in sit-ups. Plus, seated toe touch was easy for a shapeshifter. I said they weren't exciting, didn't I? All right, time to give you your results. I've ranked you all from best to worst. You should probably have a good idea of your standing already. I'll just pull up the whole list. It's not worth going over each individual score. Aizawa monotoned. I knew that he was just trying to get it over quicker so that he could visit the gingerbread house. First Momo Yaoyorozu, second Shoto Todoroki, third Izuku Midoriya, fourth Katsuki Bakugou. The rest I didn't pay attention to. I couldn't find a fault in the top 4 rankings, at least based on what I displayed. Momo could make any kind of equipment for any given situation. Bandages and silver nitrate were more valuable than a combat powerhouse when civilians are hurt, and EMTs are minutes away when seconds count. Shoto has more ranged options than I do. In a head-to-head I probably could beat him, but on a simple what we are capable of scale he is above me. Though why he didn't use the other half of his quirk I don't know. Something to do with heat, if his weird body temp on my heat vision was any indicator. Third and fourth was just personal bragging rights. What about your bet with Midoriya? The spiky red head shouted. I was lying, no one's going home. Wow, that SHT eating grin was gold. That was just a rational deception to make sure you gave it your all in the tests. I'm surprised the rest of you didn't figure that out. I'm sorry Midoriya, guess I should have said something. Momo apologized. What for? I just asked for that safety net to get the conversation over with, and he's lying about how close we were to expulsion. I dropped with the subtlety of a WMD. What do you mean? The nice girl now known to be Ochiko Uraraka asked. Our puckish teacher expelled his entire class last year on the first day. I shouted. There was a collective shout of disbelief. So, given his history of expelling both the entire and none of his class, he was most likely looking for something beyond our physical performance. Not that it wasn't informative to him. My guess is that he wanted to know how we would perform under pressure. If anyone broke or didn't take his threat seriously, they would have been kicked out even if they were first place. Did I get it right, Aizawa? I asked. Yes, you did. If I didn't see any potential in any of you, I would have expelled you like last year's batch. He confirmed. Dead silence was met with that revelation. That's it, we're done for the day. Pick up a syllabus in the classroom. Read it over before tomorrow morning. Aizawa finished, or so I thought. Midoriya, I hate long pauses, get to the point hobo. Good job, not many understand the value of secrets and surprises. You could be a good underground hero. If you make it past tomorrow. He jabbed at the end. DMN it, I'm starting to like him. I have to get the last word in somehow. You have no idea, sensei. I spoke using a perfect imitation of his voice. His head whipped back so fast after he stopped his walkout that I was wondering if his bones were RBB. My only response to his incredulous face was my own SHT-eating grin. Two could play at this game. Aizawa POV Izuku Midoriya. He's a wild card. That little voice trick was a taunt. He's still not shown everything he can do. Having a hidden ace in this business can mean the difference between life and death, but here at this school it makes it difficult to tailor our training approach to him. A problem child if there ever was one. I accept your challenge, problem child. I'll pry out every secret power you have before the semester is out. Now what could that media magnet of a new teacher want? Wouldn't surprise me if you were picking favorites already. The problem child might be mine, for now. Doesn't matter, picking favorites is illogical. Our class was let out early given it was the first day. I, however, was asked to go to the principal's office before I could leave. I must have set a new record. Nizu was a very obscure hero. His identity was almost entirely entrenched as the principal of UA. In fact, he only had about a week between getting his hero and teaching licenses and taking a teaching position at UA. Any noteworthy achievements of his happened as a teacher. But I know the key things for this conversation. High spec is his quirk, granting him genius-level intellect, and his time as a lab rat has left him with a sadistic streak I do not want to be on the receiving end of. I knocked on his office door and waited. Kaken hasn't destroyed my manners, despite his valiant attempts. Come in, was his reply. His office was decorated in a typical academic way. PhDs and other accolades lining the high shelves. He couldn't see any of them while walking on the floor, so they were placed purely to intimidate anyone else coming in. Ah, Mr. Midoriya, please sit down. I complied. I'll skip asking if you know why you're here and just get to it. Your homeroom teacher reported that you knew who was expelled in his class last year. Those records are confidential and kept off any of our servers for security purposes. The question is, how did you do it? He questioned. That look in his eyes was what put me at ease. It was the look of a mad scientist who had just found something unexpected. A new discovery. If he were Recovery Girl, I would be running, but his history with illegal experimentation and his dedication to teaching gave me confidence in what he was thinking. You're happy it was me who broke into your records and announced it so blatantly? I asked, already knowing the answer. Perceptive too, yes I am. It's not every day that I get to upgrade the security system because a student beat it. Normally when that happens it's because a dangerous villain found a way in and I have to worry about what they took. This is a breath of fresh air compared to that mess. So, I'm not in trouble? I asked. On the contrary, I think I might get you to test our security regularly if you could move so easily through the campus without getting caught. He almost squealed. If I didn't have an inner kleptomaniac before, I sure do now. Now back to my original question, how did you do it? Your quirk registration must be out of date because I couldn't see anything on record that could have gotten you past the key-coded doors. The principal asked. Well. And with that I shifted into All Might's skinny form. It's pretty easy to get another copy of your codes when everyone knows you're a new teacher. I said in the number one hero's raspy voice. How ruthless, using your predecessor's weakened form to achieve your goals. I love it. The sadistic little varmint replied. I'll let the other teachers know of your side project. No punishment will be necessary for this incident. You may leave, Mr. Midoriya, have a good day. Nizu concluded. Just as I was about to grab the doorknob he spoke again. By the way, I will have to inform your homeroom teacher of our conversation today. DMN, and here I thought I got away without repercussions. Point to you, Aizawa. It only hit me that the principal knows about one for all after I shut the door. Scene break. Kakin had other errands to run for his mom. He may talk a big game, but when she says bring back milk, Kakin brings back milk. Turns out me and Ida both use the train to get to school, and I was just listening to him ramble on about how the first day went. My earlier assessment of him was spot on, lawful good. Who critiques the teachers? But, today wasn't done throwing me surprises. The nice girl uses the station as well. Her name is Ochiko Uraraka and she is so adorable. I have never said that about a member of the opposite SEC, and I don't think anyone will ever be able to come close to her on the adorable scale. She is so genuinely bubbly that she could give puppies on speed a run for their money. All in all, I think the first day of U was a success. The second was less so. Mornings consist of regular courses, English, math, etc. Lunch was served in the cafeteria. They have heroes working the cafeteria. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. The hero Lunch Rush, who is known to provide food to disaster victims in record time, works in U.A.'s cafeteria when the weather is nice. The afternoon, however, was reserved for the class that we all went through that over-the-top entrance exam for. Hero Basic Training, taught by my idol, mentor and soon-to-be predecessor, All Might. I'm here. Coming through the door like a hero. He shouted. Sometimes I wonder if beneath all that muscle is a teenage female pop star, given that he is hanging onto the edges of the door while on his tiptoes moving everything forward. Then he starts walking like he's a soldier marching during drills, and I figured he was just nervous about his first day teaching. When in doubt, play to your strengths, and his was most certainly theatrics. Everyone else was gushing too much about him actually teaching to pick up on his distress. Welcome to the most important class at U. Hi. Think of it as Hero NG. Here you will learn the basics of being a pro. And what it means to fight in the name of good. Let's get into it. Today's lesson will pull no punches. And this is where he pulls out a flash card with the word battle stylized on it. Kakin couldn't help growling out fight training like a hound chomping at the bit. But one of the keys of being a hero is looking good, he said while gesturing to the wall to our left. Perfectly timed, sections of said wall extended out with numbered boxes in them. These were designed for you based on your Quirk registration forms and the requests you sent in before school started. He announced, followed by cheering. Get yourselves suited up and then meet me at Training Ground Beta. And with that he left in a flash, probably to take a break from his muscle form to conserve time. While everyone was crowding the suitcases, I was making my way to the door. Midoriya, aren't you going to grab your costume? Ochiko asked. Followed by half the class turning to look at us. My costume is not here, so I was going to go grab it. I'll meet you guys at the training grounds. I lied smoothly. Oh, please Deku, are you going to keep this up? I thought you were done hiding. Kakin added. I am Kakin, it's going to be a surprise. It's training, so it would be detrimental to everyone if I were to try and hide my capabilities until the exercise started. I shot back. You mean you're going to use that? He asked. Yes, I am. To be honest, I don't know why you like it when I leave so much skin on display, Kakin, unless there's something you're not telling me. I teased. You know DMN well that you don't expose any skin. Nice try though. He said without even a hint of a blush from embarrassment. I missed the days where I could derail him with my remarks. Especially when he wants to get me to do something I don't want to do. Seeing as I didn't need to change into a costume, I made good time getting to the training ground and met up with All Might. Still in my uniform. Still haven't decided on a costume yet, young Midoriya? The number one hero asked. As soon as I get close to something I like, I change my mind like a squirrel. I've narrowed it down to either good-looking biker leather or a futuristic design. For today I'll just use this. And with that I shifted into my battle mode, matching All Might in height but leaner on the muscle. Skin gave way to gunmetal gray anatomy that, while anatomically correct, had a synthetic detailing that made me look more badass. My reproductive organs weren't on display, so I felt no embarrassment about how I looked. All I felt was pride in my capabilities and eagerness to learn. Sparring with Kaken has given me an appreciation of a good fight, but ultimately, I want to be a hero to help people. To make them feel safe when bad things happen. Beating up villains for me is the half of a marble cake that you tolerate at first but eventually start to like a little. I heard my classmates coming out of the change room. My back was to them and I held that position a little longer than normal. All Might got the idea and remained silent. Guess he loves a good plot twist like me. When the last one made it out, I turned around and was greeted with slack jaws. Everyone was staring at me. "Sir, are you bringing in another pro to help supervise?" Ida's voice said, coming from the robo-race car. Kaken couldn't take it. His laughter was loud and followed by him rolling on the ground. It was so disruptive that it took All Might a few seconds to respond. "No, young Ida, I have not. He will be participating in this exercise," he declared. "Wait a minute, he's a student," Kirishima exclaimed. That was my cue and I added a metallic synthetic effect to my voice. "I'm a little hurt that you guys don't recognize me." Kaken did. I hinted. It was appealing. The whole class in sync exclaimed. Midoriya. "No, it's the robot uprising, of course it's me." "But you don't look like you," was Kirishima's reply. "I always look like me, except when I look like you," I said, and halfway through talking I changed into a perfect copy of Kirishima. Any jaws that just got off the ground were promptly back on said ground. Kirishima, however, was grinning. "Twice the manliness," he exclaimed. "Yes indeed," I replied, grabbing him in a friendly headlock. While doing so I whispered my plan to him, and he shook his head in enthusiastic agreement. "Let's play a little game, guys," I announced puckishly. While heads were tilting I twirled myself and Kirishima to make it impossible for anyone to follow me. At the end of it we stood side by side with a hand on each other's head. Which one of us is the real one? Kirishima pulled off that twin speak perfectly. The class started to mumble until the girl with pink skin walked up. In middle school a scary guy tried to hurt me and another classmate of ours. "You jumped in to protect us, right?" she asked. "No, I didn't, I was too scared at the time and it is one of my most embarrassing moments." I cut in before my copied victim could reply. Kirishima was staring at me in stunned silence while Mina approached him. Good thing he saw her in time to harden himself before Mina's uppercut could land. It actually lifted Kirishima off the ground. "That's for making me embarrass my friend," she shouted. "You got the wrong one, Mina," Kirishima yelled while showing off his hardened chin. "What?" she replied in shock. "You lose," I intoned while placing a newly formed blade hand on her shoulder from behind her back. Once she got a look at me, I changed back to my battle mode and returned my hand to normal. The moment felt like an eternity but was broken by All Might. "Good job, young Ishido. Normally that would be the perfect way to figure out who is the fake. Midoriya, care to explain how you knew the correct answer?" All Might asked. "My quirk, machine phase matter, allows me to weakly sense electromagnetic energy." While my hand was on Kirishima's head, I was able to interpret his brain's activity and read his present thoughts. Once she asked the question he thought about the answer and I knew what to say. However, I had to be touching his head to pull off that magic trick. I replied. My last few words brought the whispers down to a lull. Guess people were worried I would find out their search history. Well, all except for one. Now that you're ready, it's time for combat training. All Might cut in. "Sir, this is the fake city from our entrance exam. Does that mean that we'll be conducting urban battles again?" Ida asked, identifying him as the Mech Knight. "Not quite, I am going to move you 2 steps ahead. Most of the villain fights you see on the news take place outside. However, statistically speaking, run-ins with the most dastardly evildoers take place indoors. Think about it. Backroom deals, home invasions, secret underground lairs. Truly intelligent criminals stay hidden in the shadows. He lectured. For this training exercise you'll be split into teams of good guys and bad guys and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. All Might added. Isn't this a little advanced? The frog girl asked. The best training is what you get on the battlefield. But remember, you can't just punch a robot this time. You're dealing with actual people now. He replied. After that, the questions came too fast for anyone to answer. Kaken's question of how much can we hurt the other team was amusing. All Might was even growling under his breath about how he wasn't finished talking. Then he pulled out a script. A script. The situation is this. The villains have hidden a nuclear missile somewhere in their hideout. The heroes must try to foil their plans. To do that, the good guys either have to catch the evildoers or recover the weapon. Likewise, the bad guys succeed if they protect their payload or capture the heroes. Time's limited, so we will choose teams by drawing lots. All Might declared. Isn't there a better way? Ida asked. Out in the field you rarely get your choice of who to team up with in an emergency. Best not to get into the habit of always doing hero work with the same people and become dependent on them. I replied. Yes, bad habits are the enemy. Excuse my rudeness. Ida said while bowing. No sweat. Let's draw. All Might replied hastily. Probably to try and get through the class without deflating. I don't know how to feel about getting Ochiko as a partner. On the one hand the eye candy is appreciated, but how good is she in a scrap? Maybe underneath that bubbly smile is a mean beach. Why does that thought send a shiver down my metallic spine? I declare that the first teams to fight will be these guys. My team versus Kaken and Ida. Christmas came early. Teach. Can I jump out the building and take him on outside? Kaken shouted with a little bit of desperation. Kind of defeats the purpose of indoor battle, so no. Why, may I ask, do you want to fight young Midoriya in the streets? All Might asked while a little baffled that the class pit bull seemed scared. Our classmates were in the same boat. We would spar all the time when we were in middle school, and we found out that anything short of a demolition blast doesn't slow me down, and dropping the building on my head is just going to be annoying. I answered. We had to make a new rule in our last year where if he could keep away from me for 5 minutes he won. After a few too many times we had to run from the local authorities when Kaken's explosions got too big. Well, young Bakugou, like your friend said. No bad habits. So, you're going to have to get creative if you want to win this battle. Heroes don't always get to lead the villain to a more advantageous area, so we have to make do with what we got. All Might concluded. And with that the villains were led to the building to begin prepping for our arrival. You think they expect us to memorize this building's floor plan? It's so big. Uraraka asked, and I couldn't help but cut in. I already have. Really? Is it because of your quirk? Is your brain a computer? She asked with such energy that I almost couldn't believe it. All brains are computers, mine just happens to be made of metallic cells and good at retaining information. That's cool, but what is your quirk? We're a team, so maybe you could spill some secrets. I know the rest of the class can't stop talking about it. My entire body is made of multipurpose cells composed of machine phase matter. Hence the name for my quirk. Every cell in my body can perform all of my bodily functions. Shooting me in the head doesn't cause me to black out like others with a self-healing quirk. I can shapeshift into anything as long as there are no complex mechanical parts or a need for other compounds. So, you couldn't turn into a gun or a bomb? She inquired. No, and vehicles are out too, but someone always makes a transformer joke every few months. Alright. Let's begin the indoor combat training. Team A and Team D, your time starts now. With that we entered through a window on the side. I could make a plan of attack, but with so many variables and no real estimate of Ida and Uraraka's combat capabilities, that plan wouldn't survive first contact. Then there was Kaken. He has never failed to surprise me in all of our sparring sessions. Either with a new technique or with his sheer tenacity. I mean, who takes a metal right hook to the face just to set an explosion off on someone's junk. Though I got the last laugh because it didn't work. Anyways, we continued down the hallway, and not even 5 minutes in, Kaken destroys the wall next to us. Probably trying to take out my partner. I will never figure out how he knew we were there, even I can't see through these reinforced walls. His plan didn't work though, as I had just enough time to cover her with my body on the floor. The remains of the door bouncing off of me like they were made of RBB. Go, I will deal with him and then catch up, I assured Uraraka. She nodded, and as soon as got off of her and into a crouch, she was gone. Leaving me with the human pipe bomb. You'll deal with me, he growled. I'm up by 10, aren't I jeered, standing up, relaxed. The PP shot doesn't count. He snapped. Turnabout's fair play. I countered. Doesn't matter, cause right here right now, I'm going to win. He declared. Weren't you just shaking in your boots about taking me on indoors? I asked, honestly confused by the display of fear. I've been trying to get you to show off your true strength for years, and you finally do it, and you didn't think I was going to pile on? Kaken asked while smirking. That floored me, and once I thought about it, the light bulb went off. You used your own reputation to bolster mine. I whispered. The following head shake and SHT-eating grin made me realize how infuriating it could be. And when I beat you like a Cherokee drum, I get all those rep points back with interest. He sing-songed. The world righted itself when he said that. I don't actually believe him, but the statement was in character for him. I had no more time to think about our soap opera when he sent a good-sized explosion my way. The battle had begun. While his explosions couldn't hurt me, they could stop me for a second and push me back if they unbalanced me. This one was meant to obscure my vision. Something in the chemical makeup of the smoke he can make with his explosions interferes with my enhanced vision. It helped me train my reflexes, and a tried and true method of catching him when he does this is to simply charge ahead and interrupt his sneak attack. This time was different. I didn't find him on the other side of the smokescreen. He ran away. The world didn't make sense again. Why would Fight Night's poster boy run away? Aside from make the enemy eat dirt, he never has a plan. Unless he does have one. Stalling for time and guerrilla tactics. I didn't think you had it in you. And I seriously didn't, but this exercise added a different objective, and Kaken was using that to his advantage. Do I focus on catching him and wasting time, or do I try and move on and let him plan his next sneak attack? With the capture tape rule, he could actually take me out of the exercise if he's willing to use it. I was so focused on how to fight the mortar-turned-landmine that I almost forgot the obvious. I don't have to fight him. The goal is to get to the bomb, not take out the villain. Curse you, Kaken, for giving me your tunnel vision. I don't have time for this. I growled out. No matter how tough you make a building, you have to have ventilation to keep up the airflow, and I am made of metal sand if I want to be. The air duct was above me and a small jump away. It looked like I was being beamed up. The cursing I could hear before moving to the next floor was such sweet music. After getting some distance, I reformed and put the earpiece I carried with me into my ear to call my partner. Uraraka, where are you? I asked. Near the middle of the 5th floor, Ida found me, but he's monologuing right now. Perfect. I said. That was about all the time I had before Kaken jumped out from behind cover with his gauntlet primed and pointed at me. He was too far away for me to stop him. All I could do was listen to All Might tell him he was going too far, and Kaken say that this was only going to slow me down. Doesn't mean it's not going to hurt like a beach. Control room, these two are interesting. Bakugou may act like a fight-happy maniac, but underneath he's a sharp one, and his instincts for combat are unheard of. Which came first, the tactician or the rabid dog? Doesn't matter. Midoriya is far more dangerous. My father wanted an heir with two opposing quirks, and here's someone with one that has so many different uses that he may as well have multiple quirks. The irony. A body that's sturdier than steel but more malleable than sand, perfect body mimicry and shape-shifting with tactical mind reading as well. If that's not enough, he also has enough strength to nip at All Might's heels. Makes me wonder if my ice could actually hold him. Bakugou just released an explosion strong enough to shake us all the way over here. That much force might have actually hurt Midoriya. When the smoke cleared, there was no sign of Midoriya. He definitely wasn't dead if how fast his arm grew back on the first day was any indication, but could there be a limit to how much his body could take? Bakugou walked about halfway down the destroyed hallway when we got our answer. This wasn't the limit, it was a trap. Midoriya didn't reform right away. He used his dispersed particles like a killer sandstorm, passing through or around Bakugou's back and delivering multiple blows on the way, reforming in front of him. With Bakugou leaning forward and off balance, he couldn't move out of the way from Midoriya's hammer fist. If the blow itself didn't knock him out, then his head hitting the floor finished it. Bakugou never used the comms they were given, and Midoriya was taking advantage of that. After removing it from his opponent's ear, he morphed into a perfect copy of said enemy. He even got the damage to Bakugou's hero costume right. The comms were tied into this room so we could hear Midoriya fooling Ida. I finally beat him. Hall monitor. You done with the other one yet? He growled out in a perfect imitation. Not yet, but I can keep her away from the bomb until time runs out, my villainous partner. Midoriya stumbled when he heard that. Weird. Why would that make him pause? Either way, he recovered quickly. Bah. I'm coming back to get this over with. It's no fun if I can't pummel Deku. Ida had no clue that he was being played. An even more embarrassing mistake with the show Midoriya put on before the exercise. The sneak attack that won the match for the heroes wasn't worth remembering. Aside from Midoriya coordinating with his partner to make sure that Ida was near the stairwell so that he didn't have to fake any attacks on his partner to keep up the ruse. He held Ida in a headlock while Uraraka ran to touch the bomb. Ida tried to break free, but he did more damage to his costume than he did to Midoriya. Hero team wins. All Might announced. Classmates cheered, but I had other thoughts. Midoriya, you are the first step on my path to being number one with my mother's ice and her ice alone. After All Might announced the winner, some medical bots came out to cart my best friend to the witch they call a nurse. In order to save my friend, I had to reveal Kaken's unofficial secondary quirk. Kaken, you lost. I shouted as loud as I could. Like F I did. He screamed while sitting up ramrod straight. We discovered this little quirk when I accidentally knocked him out the first time we sparred, and I mentioned that he lost to me to the paramedic. I think the poor EMT was close to a heart attack when my friend, like just now, bolted upright shouting his denial. All Might still wanted him to go in case he had a concussion. I had to explain that it was practically impossible for Kaken to ever get a concussion. With all the practice we put in, our bodies adapted to the strain our quirks put on them. For me, the muscle memory of moving every little piece of me increased, and Bakugou's internals became so resistant to concussive force that in order to damage him internally you either had to stab him or hit him with enough force to get past his resistance. By that point though you're going to be shattering bone. In short, the force needed to give him a concussion was greater than the force needed to cave his skull in. Only reason I was able to knock him out was because the way his head hit the ground. The force flung his body over his head, and his incredibly sturdy spine stopped any breakage, but the stress on his nerves overloaded them, resulting in his previously unconscious state. In short, me and my best friend got to watch the rest of the fights, and I had another point for why restrictions on quirk use should be lessened. Part of the reason that people's quirks are so detrimental to their health so quickly is because they don't practice with them a lot. A child with wings who flies to school is going to be stronger and healthier than the same kid with the same quirk who takes the bus instead. A former classmate of mine had wings and was overweight, case in point. The four of us plus our teacher just made it back to the monitor room where the rest of the class was waiting. The MVP of this exercise was a tie between Midoriya and Ida. Can anyone guess why? All Might asked. Sir, I can tell you why. Momo declared. Ida embraced this challenge. He was the only one who truly adapted to his assigned role. The only mark he has against him is that he didn't consider Midoriya's shape-shifting. Midoriya also only has one minor slip when he wasted time trying to fight Bakugou rather than going for the weapon, which he later did. As you pointed out earlier, launching a large-scale attack indoors was a foolish move. It could have been disastrous, eliminating Bakugou from being MVP. As for Uraraka, she let her guard down mid-battle and had to rely on her partner's sneak attack to recover the advantage she had. She finished. You did miss a few things. Young Ida could have relaxed in the exercise, but otherwise you nailed it. All Might replied. I actually disagree with one point of her assessment. I added, silencing everyone. Go on. My predecessor encouraged. Everyone has been assuming that our time limit is because if we fail in that time the bomb goes off and unleashes nuclear hell, correct? I asked. All our classmates nodded. Then, aside from the fact that this is a training exercise, what incentive does the villain team have to value their personal safety? Even if they have access to a warp quirk to get clear of the blast the instant it goes off. The chance of the heroes being able to disable the bomb within that time is too great for them to leave it to chance. Odds are that those who are guarding it are willing to die to set it off. If Ida is getting points for staying in character, then Bakugou should at the very least not have it held against him for almost blowing up the building. I pointed out. Destroying the building and taking out the heroes eliminates the possibility of someone disabling the bomb, and damage to the weapon is more likely to set it off than disable it, so Bakugou's over-the-top explosion was actually the best move he had when he couldn't guarantee the weapon's safety from the heroes. I finished. You are also correct, Midoriya, though a bit extreme. I should have been more clear on the villain's objectives to avoid such a hazardous assumption. From now on, the timer is not a countdown to detonation but how long the villains need for their warp quirk to recover for another jump to get away. All Might declared. I don't need you defending me, Deku. Kakin shouted. Good thing I only pointed it out to avoid any more explosions. One walking boomstick is all I can handle in my life. Everyone chuckled at that. Once the commotion of getting the next team selected and sent out died down, the tall hottie approached me in the back of the room. That was very insightful of you, Midoriya. She spoke. Thank you, but I didn't do it to defend my friend. God knows he needs to learn that dropping a building on it is not the solution to every problem. Then why did you do it? She asked. All Might. I replied. All I got was a raised eyebrow. He has many accolades to his name, but his teaching license is honorary. He is doing exceptionally well for someone who has no formal teaching experience. But he is assuming that us students will be able to follow his unsaid direction when it is his job to guide us through something we have no clue how to do. I replied. You were trying to help him be a better teacher, she queried. A young teacher asked her elementary class to do a creative writing assignment about someone being in a new and strange place. She wanted a story about how this school is scary and I hope to make friends. One kid gave her a graphic depiction of a squid dying in a forest. She gave a little snort at that. But in our case, All Might wanted us to face off against each other in an indoor battle with a half-baked scenario that was open to interpretation with a very real bomb with an attitude problem. That room for interpretation just about had a building dropped on 4 students and 3 would have been injured or killed from it. Do you by chance dislike All Might? She asked almost innocently. My brain actually stalled for a moment. I'm sorry, did you just accuse a shameless All Might fan of not liking him? Was her intelligent response. I'm kidding, not about the shameless fan part but the indignation. I clarified. Before our conversation could continue, All Might announced the start of the next trial. To call it one-sided would be an understatement. We could feel the chill from all the way over here. The level of control that Todoroki has over his ice could only be achieved through countless hours of practice. Most people would assume that his power comes from his quirk and nothing else. Didn't I tell you we would find competition here, Kaken? I whispered to my friend. For you maybe, was his response. He wasn't fooling me. He was honestly worried. It's a good thing I've helped with his inferiority complex, or he might be having a mini meltdown. For those of you wondering how I helped him out on his complex, it's quite simple. I kicked his butt, repeatedly. If I weren't there to challenge him, he would have been stuck in a rut with empty praise fueling his ego. I keep Kaken as humble as I can. Some would say I failed miserably, but they don't know how bad it could have been. Other than Todoroki, the other matches were pretty straightforward. I still made mental notes on everyone's quirks, potential uses and weaknesses. That's a wrap. Super work. You really stepped up to the plate, and we didn't have any major injuries. You should be proud. Excellent first day of training, all around. All Might declared in his over-the-top fashion that I still cannot get enough of. It's nice to hear some encouraging words after our homeroom class. Mr. Aizawa was kind of a buzzkill. So you summed up. I'm happy to bring such staggering positivity to my alma mater. That's all for now, folks. I should take care of my paperwork. Now watch how a pro exits. Like he's got somewhere to be. All Might encouraged while running faster than most cars. Okay you guys, that is a hero. Ah, I'll never be able to run that fast. Super awesome. I however knew what was really going on and wasn't as happy-go-lucky as everyone else. All Might could barely teach a class without losing his form. He may be able to keep heroing for another year, but I'm not sure he's going to make it through a year of teaching if he insists on doing it in his buff form. Hey! Midoriya. Are you going to go to lockers with us, or are you going to do your shape-shifting thing? Kirishima asked. I was still in my combat form. Got nothing better to do. I replied. I was kind of curious. Never had to use a locker room before, so this would be novel. Locker room I didn't miss much, and I could do without the smell. So, Midoriya, what are the limits of your shape-shifting if it's not too personal? Asked our resident Raven. I was kind of surprised that he would be the one to ask. He seemed more the quiet type. Solid or liquid shapes only, so I can't pull off Endeavor's flaming hair. Nothing smaller than my total body mass, or too much though I can hollow myself out to somewhat compensate. While I can replicate the shape of something, I can't change the chemical makeup of my body like Yaoyorozu can. I listed off. So, you could imitate me? Tokoyami asked. Now I know why he spoke up. To answer him I decided to give it a go. In under 10 seconds there stood two raven-headed teens with towels wrapped around their waists. Whoa! Kaminari surmised. Click click click. Having a beak feels weird. I said in my voice after giving my new lips a test drive. I wouldn't know. Our feathered friend shrugged. So, is your junk the same size too? Kaminari asked with the subtlety of a wrecking ball. Didn't know a bird could blush. Tokoyami was proving it though. Yes, and I know your size too. Keep it civil and I won't spill the beans to the girls. I have threatened, not knowing how I would even do that without coming off like a creep. Okay, just wondering. He apologized. Can you mimic women just as well? The resident pervert Mineta asked. I was tempted not to answer, but now everyone in the locker room minus Kaken and Todoroki were looking at me with barely concealed curiosity, plus I'm comfortable with my body and all its quirks. This is just going to bug everyone until I answer. Yes, I can mimic everything when impersonating a woman, everything. I stressed. But I don't like keeping it up for long periods of time, and it's just not my thing. Body dysmorphism. The Raven asked. Yes, how Yaoyorozu can fight while wearing heels and no sports br is a mystery. I don't think I will ever figure out. I tried it once in junior high, and having the equivalent of a pair of melons loosely strapped to your chest plays havoc with your sense of balance, and forcing those puppies to stay still makes them look fake, ruining the camouflage. I ranted, still mimicking Tokoyami. It was the one weakness of my mimicry that still bugs me. I take pride in being able to imitate others perfectly. Almost perfectly. Keep talking like that, Deku, and people will think you're a pervert. My friend quipped, trying to get a shot in. Too bad I have more ammo than him. Then what does it say about you when I use Lady Kaken? I fired back, smirking to get used to the beak. Bakugou was almost as red as a tomato. That one is losing its effect. That I am the best no matter which gender I am. He shouted. I should have seen that coming. Lady Kaken? Ida asked. Bakugou tried to tease me about being able to effectively turn into a girl, so I turned into an older female version of him and claimed I was his older sister for a day despite the vertigo. I dropped. Everyone laughed at that one and poked for more answers out of the living stick of dynamite. Once we made it back to homeroom, the rest of the school day was reserved for regular classes. Near the end of it, we had some free time to go over the results of our battle training. I didn't have much to go over, so I spent that time giving everyone what little tips for their quirks I could. Overall, not a bad day. The start of the next, however, was a circus, and not even a fun one. A battalion of reporters were hanging out in front of UA, harassing students and faculty for anything on the newest teacher. I pity those who can't slip by them by impersonating a reporter. Didn't even have to change my face. Just age myself a bit and throw on the news agency accessories of my choice, and none of them noticed until I crossed the threshold. By then it was too late for them to catch me. Decent work on yesterday's combat training, you guys. I saw the video feeds and went over each of your team's results. Bakugou, you're talented. So, don't sulk like a child about your loss, okay? Yeah, whatever. And Midoriya, stay focused on the objective. Wasting time isn't logical. Fix that and you'll be a force to be reckoned with. Aizawa complimented backhandedly. Let's get down to business. Our first task will decide your future. You could feel the tension in the air. You all need to pick a class representative. The relief was also palpable. And the shouting of pick me. Normally the class rep just gets saddled with extra work that nobody wants. But here in the hero course it has more significance. Agencies love it when you have tangible proof that you can lead a team while under pressure. Silence, everyone, please. Thank you, Ida. The class representative's duty is to lead others. That's not something just anyone can do. You must first have the trust of every student in the classroom. Therefore, the most logical way to fill this position is democratically. We will hold an election to choose our leader. He prattled on. It was obvious that he wants to take the position. Is this really the best idea? Asked Kaminari. We've only known each other a few days, how do we know who we can trust? So you supplied. Besides, everyone will just vote for themselves. Kirishima pointed out. Most people will. But that means whoever does receive multiple votes must truly be the most suitable person for the job. It's the best way, right, sir? Ida asked our lazy homeroom teacher. Do what you want, just decide before my nap's over. He answered before falling over in his sleeping bag. Thank you for your trust. Ida exclaimed, missing Aizawa's apathy. And if we don't like who we pick, we can just lynch them afterwards if they don't want to step down. I joked. I was met with silence. I've been around Bakugou since we were kids, I blame him for my morbid sense of humor. I defended. Surprisingly, most of the class nodded at that. Why do you always blame me for your problems? Deku denied said friend. Because most of the time you are the source of strife in my life, and if I ever start Robot Armageddon, I will make sure the survivors remember that your bad influence caused it. I teased. While he and I bickered, everyone else was going through with the voting. Once hours were added, Ida counted them out. Somehow, I got 3 votes and Momo got 2. Okay, you idiots, who voted for him? Kaken demanded. What did you honestly think anyone was going to vote for you? The walking tape dispenser asked. Which caused Bakugou to devolve into his usual denials and threats. Ida was also lamenting the results with his lack of any votes. Honestly, he is way too rigid. Alright, the class rep is Midoriya, and our deputy is Yaoyorozu. Aizawa declared with the two of us standing in front of the class. You guys just want to see if I will live in fear of getting lynched, don't you? I accused. Silence. Then I guess we shall see if you will get your wish. With that it was time for lunch. It's always so crowded in the cafeteria with all the other departments sharing the same block for lunch. Currently I was sharing a table with Ida and Achiko, who just voiced my own thoughts. So, who do you think voted for me? I asked them. Both of them froze mid-sentence. Seriously, you both voted for me? I asked, slightly bewildered. Your courage and quick thinking under stress will make you a worthy leader. Not to mention the strength you demonstrated. Those are the reasons I voted for you at least. He answered. Didn't you want to be repped really badly? I mean, you do look the part. 'Cause of the glasses? Achiko asked. Sometimes I wonder what goes on inside of that girl's head. Though I don't think anyone in the hero course can claim to be sane in any sense of the word. Wanting a job and being suited to it are quite different things. Observing the Ida family's hero agency has taught me that much. I thought I recognized that style of armor. You're Ingenium's younger brother, aren't you? I asked. How did you figure out that I was his younger brother? Ida questioned. I like to keep up to date on heroes both present and past, and the only Ida currently active as a hero is Ingenium. Given the time of his debut, he would have had to have been 12 or so when you were born. So, either he is a ladies' man or your brothers. I explained. I knew you were rich, Ida, exclaimed Achiko. Ignoring her, Ida continued. Insightful, like how you figured out the true meaning of the entrance exam. A rep needs that. I didn't save her for rescue points, Ida. I may have had suspicions about the 0-pointer, but that was all. I saved our friend here because it was the right thing to do. If the school told us that such actions would have deducted points, I still would have done the exact same thing. I explained. Both of my new friends were silent, as if asking me to continue. For me, being a hero isn't about the money, the fame or legacy. It's about helping people with a smile on my face when they need it, because everyone will face a crisis in their lives, and if no one is there to help them, then it may just be the last thing they ever face. I only hope that when I face my darkest hour that I will have friends willing to stand by me as we brave that darkness. I declared. All Might may be the #1 hero, but the rest of the top 10 put together save more people than him annually by a huge margin. I'm not as arrogant as my childhood friend to believe that I can defeat all evil by myself. There will come a time when we will all need the help of others to get the job done. Quirks are not able to change that intrinsic aspect of humanity. At least not yet, and a part of me hopes that that will never change. Before we could continue our discussion, an alarm went off. Warning, level 3 security breach. All students please evacuate the building in an orderly fashion. Said a recording over the PA. Ida asked the guy sitting next to us what level 3 meant. Turns out someone made it past the school's barrier. While this was going on, I was hacking into the security cameras in the school through the phone in my pocket. Better tell Nizu that having a wireless connection to the security feed is a vulnerability. By the time I got tapped in and found out it was just the media who got in, the whole cafeteria was in a panic trying to fit through a hallway. Someone could get hurt. This will not do. I dispersed my body into a cloud/sandstorm of particles. Ignoring the thought of my phone being damaged, I began moving between everyone to get to the narrowed exit door. This simultaneously had the effect of getting me to my destination and freezing those who saw and heard me pass by them. My particles reached the exit, and I began moving them to stretch up to the ledge above the door, using the metal support beams in the wall to cling to with my magnetic field. As more of me reached my destination, I pulled myself back together in a sitting position. For a brief second, everyone could see the understructure of my body. This also helped in grabbing everyone's attention. Everyone calm down. It's just the media outside. There's nothing to worry about. We are UA students, is this how we act when an alarm goes off? I demanded. Right on K. The police sirens signaled the end of this debacle. Everyone calmed down and order was restored. The rest of the day blew by me, giving half-distracted answers to everyone. I was going through all the video footage the security cameras picked up and found holes in the recordings. They started at the gate, and by logical deduction I plotted the path that the person who destroyed the front gate took. I have no idea what they could have wanted in the faculty lounge or how they wiped the security footage, but I was going to inform the principal at the end of the school day. I hope it was just a crazy fan with mad skills, but I can't help but feel that whoever did this has much more sinister intentions.